The night my biopsy results came back, my parents hugged my brother harder than they hugged me. That was the moment I understood something I had spent my entire life trying not to believe. In my family, my pain was always background noise. Ryan's future, however, was the headline. I was 29 and living in a small apartment in Portland, working long hours as a graphic designer at a local marketing agency. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Until the day I collapsed in the middle of a client meeting, waking up with oxygen tubes in my nose and a nurse explaining that more tests were needed. When the oncologist finally spoke the words, aggressive lymphoma, my stomach dropped, but my mother's reaction cut deeper than any medical news. She asked about the cost before asking about my chances. My father placed a stiff hand on my shoulder, the kind of touch that said he didn't know what to do with me. And Ryan, shining in his expensive jacket and new engagement ring still glinting on his fiancée's hand, told me I would beat it. But he said it with the casual tone of someone rooting for a sports team they didn't actually follow. The doctor explained the treatment plan: chemotherapy, targeted therapy, monitoring, and recovery. The estimated cost hovered near $120,000. My insurance covered some, but not nearly enough. I heard the number and felt the floor drop beneath me. My parents insisted they would take care of everything. They talked about community support, fundraising, how people rally around good families in tough times. Ryan stepped up like a hero, volunteering to organize a fundraiser. He spoke with confidence, with the charm that always seemed to make people listen. I watched them take over my crisis like it was their project. Within a week, the fundraiser was everywhere online. Photos of me during better days, captions about bravery, posts filled with heartfelt pleas to help Emily fight. Donations poured in faster than I expected. I lay in bed reading the updates, while my parents sat in the living room cheering over every new contribution. By the end of 2 weeks, they had raised $85,000. Everyone celebrated. My father bought champagne. Ryan toasted to saving my sister's life. His fiancée filmed the moment for social media, catching me in the corner of the frame, pale, exhausted, trying to smile. The first treatment was scheduled, but then something strange happened. My appointment was delayed, then rescheduled, then pushed again because of funding adjustments. When I asked Ryan directly, he told me the clinic had billing issues and that I should relax because everything was being handled. But the bills started coming. Statements showed partial payments. My insurance called to confirm whether I understood the remaining balance. I checked the fundraiser account myself, expecting to see the full amount waiting. It wasn't there. A portion remained, but most of the money had been transferred. When I confronted my parents, they exchanged a glance so quick and sharp it was like they had rehearsed it. My mother explained that Ryan's tech startup had a cash flow emergency, and since he planned to pay it all back soon, they agreed the fundraiser money could temporarily support him. I felt dizzy. I could barely stand, but the betrayal made my pulse spike so violently I had to sit down. "I need that for treatment," I whispered. My father's voice hardened. "You're not dying tomorrow. Ryan's company is on the verge of major investment. If it succeeds, everyone benefits, including you." I realized then that I had been replaced, my life traded with a straight face for the promise of Ryan's future. I walked back to my bedroom and closed the door, leaning against it while my breath shook. I didn't know how I would pay for treatment. I didn't know how I would survive. But I knew with a clarity that terrified me. My family had chosen, and it wasn't me. What I didn't know yet was that things were about to get much worse. I woke up the next morning to the sound of laughter in the kitchen. It was jarring, hearing that kind of joy in a house where my mortality had just been weighed against my brother's business pitch deck. Ryan and my parents were planning his engagement party, discussing venues and caterers as if the $85,000 hadn't been meant to save my life. I sat at the table silently while they debated floral arrangements. My mother slid a bowl of oatmeal in front of me without looking directly at me, as if feeding me fulfilled her duty. I forced it down even though nausea curled in my stomach. My treatment schedule grew thinner by the week. I was supposed to receive chemotherapy in tight cycles, but now every session was delayed until funds cleared. I could feel the difference in my body, I was more tired. I bruised easily. My hair began thinning even more than expected. I tried confronting Ryan again, but he brushed me off with the same breezy arrogance he had carried his whole life. He insisted the money had been invested smartly, and when his startup exploded, I would have all the treatment, money, and more. "You're acting dramatic," he said with a shrug. "It's not like the doctors said you'll die this month." My chest tightened with anger I had never felt before. I wasn't asking for a luxury. I wasn't asking for a vacation. I was asking for the treatment that was supposed to keep me alive. When I complained to my parents, they defended him with a fierceness they had never shown me. "He's building something important," my father said. "You need to think big picture." "You'll get your treatment," my mother added, "but the money will come from his success. You should be grateful he's stepping up for the family." Grateful. They expected gratitude for stealing my medical fund. Weeks passed and I grew sicker. I stopped sleeping. My anxiety twisted into a constant ache beneath my ribs. At night, I could hear my parents whispering, discussing which investors Ryan might attract, how his app would change the industry, how proud they were of him. Meanwhile, my own hope was thinning as fast as my hair. When my grandmother Margaret began failing, I thought maybe, just maybe, life wasn't finished offering me a lifeline. She had always been the only person who saw me, the one who remembered my birthdays without being reminded, the one who came to my high school art shows and told me my talent would take me far. She called me princess when I was little, not because she spoiled me, but because she believed I deserved gentle things. Her house was my childhood refuge, a quiet place filled with books, knitted blankets, and small framed photographs. She had once shown me the paperwork confirming her intentions. I was to inherit her house, worth about $400,000, along with $200,000 in savings. "Security for your future," she had said. When I visited her now, frail and fading, she still reached for my hand with recognition. She asked about my treatment with worry etched deep into her face. I didn't tell her the truth. I didn't want her final days to be clouded by disappointment in her own children. But I should have known what my family was capable of. One afternoon, when I arrived at her house, I found Ryan sitting beside her with a stack of documents. My mother stood behind him, offering Margaret a cup of tea. My grandmother looked confused, her hands shaking as Ryan pointed to highlighted sections and repeated phrases like "streamline things" and "make it easier for the family." "What is that?" I demanded. Ryan didn't miss a beat. "Just updating the will, making sure everything is consistent." I stepped closer, pulse racing. "Grandma, do you know what you're signing?" Margaret looked between us with watery eyes. "They said it's just to help you all." My mother's smile was tight. "Emily, stop upsetting her. This is adult business. Margaret knows what she wants." But she didn't. She was medicated, exhausted, and leaning on the family she trusted, even when they didn't deserve it. I tried to stop it. I begged. I argued. I nearly ripped the papers from Ryan's hands. But they ushered me out of the room, and all I could hear behind the door was my grandmother's faint voice saying, "If you think that's best." The door closed, literally and symbolically. I never got another private moment with her. Days later, she passed away. At the funeral, the looks of sympathy I received felt hollow. My parents gave dramatic speeches about family unity. Ryan cried publicly for the cameras people aimed at him. I sat quietly, gripping a tissue so hard it tore. The will was read a week after the burial. I sat in the attorney's office with a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, the changed paperwork wasn't legal. But it was. Everything, house, savings, personal belongings, went to Ryan. The attorney looked at me with pity. Ryan looked at me with victory, and my parents looked at me like I should already be over it. My vision blurred. My pulse pounded. I wasn't just losing my inheritance. I was losing the last person who ever put me first. But the cliff didn't end there. Because the moment I stepped out of that office, my insurance called with a final notice. Without immediate payment, my treatment would be discontinued, and I had nothing left. I thought I was at rock bottom. I was wrong. Something unexpected was about to change everything. The week after my treatment was halted, time felt like it was bending around me, stretching thin and fragile. I could feel my body weakening. I was losing weight faster than I could track. Even climbing the stairs to my apartment left me breathless. Every morning, I stared into the mirror at a stranger with bruised skin and hollow eyes. Bills kept coming. Final notices, warnings, threats. My voicemail filled with messages from clinics and labs I barely remembered visiting. My savings were gone. My family didn't offer condolences, let alone help. I tried to call my parents again. My mother answered distracted, as if she were folding laundry or watching TV. "Mom," I said, voice shaking, "they stopped my treatment." "Yes, you told us," she replied, not alarmed. "Did you talk to Ryan? He's really busy this week, but he'll get the money sorted. You just need patience." "Patience?" My voice broke. "They said without payment I won't get the next cycle. I need treatment now." She sighed as if I were inconveniencing her. "Emily, this negativity isn't helping your health." Negativity. That was her word for cancer. My father took the phone. "Your brother has real responsibilities right now. Investors, his wedding. He's juggling a lot. Stop putting extra pressure on him." "I am dying," I whispered. There was a short silence. Then he said, "You're exaggerating. The doctor didn't give you an expiration date. If you stay calm and stop creating drama, we'll figure something out eventually." Eventually. As if cancer patiently waited for family schedules to align. When I hung up, I sat on my bed and cried until my throat ached. It wasn't just fear. It was the realization that the people who were supposed to love me were willing to gamble with my life. The next morning, I dragged myself to the hospital to speak to a billing coordinator. I expected another lecture about payment plans. Instead, I found myself sitting across from a soft-spoken woman with glasses and tired eyes. Her name was Jessica. She listened, really listened, to everything. The missing fundraiser money, the delays, the inheritance betrayal, the refusal to pay. By the time I finished, her expression wasn't pity. It was anger held tightly in her jaw. "You should not have been left without care," she said. "And you shouldn't be fighting this alone." She excused herself and returned 10 minutes later with a folder. "There's a charity program we don't advertise publicly," she said. "It's meant for cases exactly like yours. It can cover treatment, medication, and follow-ups for patients who have no realistic way to pay." I blinked through tears. "But I don't think I qualify. I'm not homeless. My family." She raised a hand gently. "Your circumstances qualify you. Let me help." For the first time in months, I felt a tiny thread of hope. Jessica walked me through every form. She even called my oncologist personally to arrange the next cycle. No delays, no excuses. 2 weeks later, I received the letter, approved. A full treatment scholarship for the entire projected cost. I held the paper against my chest and sobbed. Relief, gratitude, exhaustion, it all crashed over me. Someone finally saw my life as worth saving. The treatment started immediately. It was brutal. The first cycle knocked me off my feet for days. The nausea was relentless. My hair came out in handfuls, but I was fighting again. And this time, nothing could be taken from me. Meanwhile, my parents rarely checked in. Ryan didn't visit at all. The only updates I heard about him came through Facebook posts. Photos of him posing in expensive suits, announcing his startup's big expansion, buying a new apartment with my grandmother's money, and planning a wedding so lavish it looked like a movie set. The same money that should have secured my treatment, my future, my stability. But something strange started happening. Beneath his polished posts were subtle cracks, comments about delays, frustrated investors, whispers about unpaid contractors. His fiancée posted fewer photos. Then she stopped smiling in them. I was too sick to care deeply at the time, but I noticed. Treatment months passed. Slowly, painfully, my scans began showing improvement. Then stabilization. Then regression of the tumor. My oncologist used cautious optimism at first. Then real optimism. Then a word I wasn't prepared to hear. Remission. I didn't tell my family. I didn't have the emotional energy to give them anything. Not updates, not gratitude, not access. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life. I got stronger. I returned to work part-time, then full-time. I moved to a smaller, cheaper apartment, one I could afford without fear. I cut off toxic people, including relatives who only checked in to collect gossip. With every passing month, I felt more myself, more alive, more in control, And as I healed, Ryan's world crumbled. His startup started losing clients. His investors pulled out. Lawsuits surfaced. His expensive wedding was postponed, then canceled. His fiancée left him. His apartment was foreclosed. My parents drained their savings trying to bail him out. By the second year of my remission, they had nothing left. The golden child had taken them down with him. I didn't take pleasure in their downfall. Not yet. I simply watched from a distance, aware that karma was moving with precision. And then, one rainy afternoon, they knocked on my door. Their faces told me everything. They weren't here to check on my health. They were here because they were sinking, and they wanted me to save them. I didn't open the door at first. I stood frozen in my living room, staring at the silhouette of three people who had once convinced me that my life was worth less than my brother's ambitions. The rain behind them fell in sheets, blurring their shapes through the glass pane. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the sudden rush of old memories. My father's voice came first. "Emily, we know you're home." My mother added, "Please. It's urgent." And then Ryan, sounding nothing like the confident man he used to be. I need to talk to you." I opened the door slowly. They looked older, smaller, weathered. My father's hair had thinned dramatically. My mother's eyes were red and puffy. Ryan, once polished and magnetic, now looked like a man who had lost everything, because he had. They stepped inside without waiting for permission. The last time they had stood in a room with me, they had been certain I would die. Now they looked like the ones gasping for air. My mother started crying immediately. "Emily, we didn't know what else to do. We've exhausted everything. Our savings, the house, everything is gone." I said nothing. I kept my face calm, guarded. Ryan sat heavily on my couch. "My startup collapsed. There are lawsuits. I'm being sued for mismanagement. I owe more money than I can even process. And Mom and Dad, we used our retirement funds," my father said quietly. "Every last dollar. We believed in him. We believed things would turn around." They wanted sympathy. They wanted forgiveness. They wanted my strength for them, not for me. I crossed my arms. "Why are you here?" My mother stepped forward, wringing her hands. "Emily, honey, we know you've been doing better. That charity program helped you. And you're working again. You're stable now." "And?" I asked. Ryan lifted his head, eyes wet. "We need help. I need help. I might lose everything. I might go to prison. If I can just pay off some of the debt, settle things, keep the lawyers off my back." "You want money," I said. My father didn't even bother to deny it. "Yes, we need it to keep the family afloat." Family. The word nearly made me laugh. I sat down, keeping my voice controlled. "You want me to pay for your mistakes?" My mother shook her head quickly. "No, not mistakes. Circumstances, bad luck. The economy." "The economy didn't steal my medical fund," I said softly. That silenced them. Ryan whispered, "Emily, I know what happened was wrong. I know I made choices I shouldn't have. But I thought I had time to pay it back. I thought you'd recover. I thought my company would take off." "You didn't think," I said. "You decided my life could wait." My father cleared his throat. "We're not asking for everything, just a loan, temporary, once we get back on our feet." "Back on your feet," I interrupted. "You mean the feet you cut out from under me?" The living room fell into tight, suffocating silence. My mother pressed her palms together. "Emily, please, you're all we have left." I looked at her for a long moment. At the woman who once told me to stop being dramatic about cancer. The woman who thought Ryan's wedding was more urgent than my survival. "Do you want to know what it felt like?" I said quietly. "To hear that my treatment was canceled because you spent my fundraiser money on him." My father looked down. Ryan looked away. "I remember lying in bed," I continued, "wondering if I would die before you decided to pay attention. I remember feeling terrified and alone. And I remember thinking, maybe I really don't matter to the people who raised me." My mother cried harder. "We were wrong. We know we were wrong." "But not wrong enough," I said, "to change anything." Their silence was an admission. Finally, Ryan whispered, I'm begging you. If I don't fix this, I could lose everything. I could go to jail." "That's not my responsibility," I said. My father looked stunned. "You would let your own brother, the same brother who let me face cancer alone?" I asked. He closed his mouth. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize. I didn't try to reason with people who never listened. I simply stood my ground. "What happened to all of you," I said steadily, "is not karma punishing you for what you did to me. It's you punishing yourselves by believing Ryan's dreams were worth more than my life." They stared at me, broken. I walked to the door and held it open. "Emily," my mother whispered, "please, we're your family." I shook my head. "Family protects you. Family shows up. Family doesn't gamble with your survival." Ryan's voice cracked. "So that's it, you're cutting us off." "No," I said. "I'm letting you live with the choices you made." Their expressions collapsed. My mother sobbed. My father looked defeated. Ryan's shoulders caved inward in a way I had never seen before. None of it moved me. They walked out slowly, as if the weight of everything they had done was finally settling on their backs. I closed the door gently behind them, and for the first time in my life, I felt something new. Power. The quiet after they left felt different, not peaceful, not triumphant, just honest. For so long, I had carried the weight of a family that never carried me back. Now the burden was gone, and what remained was the truth I had avoided for nearly 30 years. I had survived without them, and I could continue surviving without them. Yet the fallout from their visit spread quickly. 2 days later, my aunt called, then a cousin, then another relative. News had moved through the family tree like wildfire, but the version they heard was twisted. "Your parents said you refused to help them. Ryan said you turned your back on him. They said you're bitter. They said you're cold. They said you owe them." Owe them, as if the debt of my existence ran in reverse. I didn't explain anything. I didn't defend myself. I simply said, "I have nothing to give," and left it at that. Their disappointment no longer belonged to me. Meanwhile, the cracks in my family's world kept widening. Ryan's lawsuits intensified. Investors demanded repayment of funds he had misused. Former employees filed wage complaints. His fancy apartment had already been repossessed. His car followed soon after. My parents' situation worsened too. They had remortgaged their home trying to rescue him, but now, with no savings and increasing debt, foreclosure loomed. They had spent their retirement not on leisure or security, but on a son who had squandered everything he touched, including the money meant for my treatment. Their collapse was slow, public, and humiliating. I didn't watch it unfold with joy, but with a kind of detached clarity. They weren't victims of karma. They were architects of their downfall. Still, part of me wondered what would happen next. Would they keep spiraling until homelessness? Prison? Would they attempt to rebuild? Would they blame me forever? The answer arrived one evening in the form of a text message. It was from Ryan. It read, "I'm sorry, can we talk, please?" I stared at the words for a long time. Not because I believed him, but because it was the first time in my life he had apologized for anything. I didn't reply. 2 days later, he showed up at my workplace. I was leaving for lunch when I saw him standing across the parking lot, hands shoved into the pockets of a coat that looked too thin for the weather. His posture was hunched, his gaze unfocused. This wasn't the charismatic golden boy anymore. This was someone who'd been stripped down to skin and fear. He approached slowly. "Emily, can we just talk? 5 minutes." I considered walking past him, pretending not to hear, but something in me, the part that once loved him, stopped. "5 minutes," I said. He nodded and followed me to a bench near the entrance. For a moment, he couldn't speak. When he finally did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I messed up. I messed up everything." I said nothing. I wasted the money. I spent all of Grandma's savings. I ruined the chance she gave me. I destroyed my company. I made Mom and Dad lose everything. His voice cracked. "And I almost killed you." I inhaled sharply, but he didn't stop. "I used your fundraiser money. I lied to you. I lied to everyone. I kept telling myself I'd pay it back, but I never did. And when you got worse, I told myself it wasn't my fault." His jaw trembled. "But it was." The honesty surprised me, not because he felt it, but because he said it out loud. He wiped his eyes. "I know you won't forgive me. I don't deserve it, I know that. But I want you to know I'm sorry, really sorry. I think about what I did every day. I think about how you could have died because of me, and I don't know how to live with that." My throat tightened, but I forced myself to stay steady. "Why now?" I asked. "Because," he said, You're the only person in my life who ever cared about me without wanting something in return. And I ruined that. I ruined you. And I don't know how to come back from it." His voice broke entirely. I let the silence stretch, not to punish him, but because I needed to feel the weight of this moment, the reversal of our entire childhood dynamic. I had chased his approval for decades. Now he was asking for mine. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. "You didn't ruin me," I said. "You ruined yourself. What you did hurt me, but I healed despite you. I rebuilt my life without the things you stole. I'm alive because strangers helped me when my own family didn't." He nodded slowly, absorbing the truth he had avoided for too long. "But I need you to understand something," I continued. "I don't owe you anything, not forgiveness, not money, not help, not a second chance." He swallowed hard. "I know. I'm not trying to punish you," I said softly. "I'm protecting myself. That's what you never did for me." He lowered his head, shame radiating from him like heat. "Ryan," I said quietly, "I hope you figure your life out, but I can't be part of that journey. Not anymore." His breath hitched, but he didn't argue. For the first time in our lives, he didn't push. He didn't manipulate. He didn't charm. He simply whispered, "Okay," and walked away. Watching him go didn't hurt the way I expected. It didn't feel triumphant either. It felt final. A chapter closing, a wound sealing, a past letting go of me as completely as I let go of it. But the story wasn't over yet. There was one more confrontation coming. And it would be with the people who had chosen his life over mine. I always thought the last conversation with my parents would happen in some dramatic place. A hospital corridor, a courtroom, a front porch in the middle of a storm. Instead, it happened in a beige conference room at a bank. The invitation came in the form of an email from my father. Short, formal, almost businesslike. "We need to speak about some important financial matters. We'd like to meet you at the bank on Saturday at 11 a.m. Please come. This affects you as well." For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity tugged at me. "This affects you as well" could mean anything, from lingering debt in my name to some leftover legal tangle involving my grandmother's estate. If there was even a small chance my name had been dragged into their financial mess, I needed to know. So on Saturday, I went. The banker led me into a small meeting room with a glass wall and a bland painting of a tree on the far side. My parents were already there, sitting side by side. They looked smaller than I remembered, not just older, diminished. My mother gave me a tentative smile. "Thank you for coming, Emily." I sat down across from them. "What is this about?" My father folded his hands on the table. "We're restructuring some of our debt. The bank is pushing us. They're talking about foreclosure collections. We tried to handle it on our own, but we can't. Not anymore." I glanced at the manila folder on the table, thick with papers. "And this affects me how?" My mother looked at my father, then back at me. "We want to transfer some of what's left of the house into your name, not the debt. Just some rights. If the bank agrees, you might be able to hold onto a portion or negotiate, or at least have something to fall back on someday." I stared at her, thrown off balance for the first time in a long time. "Why?" she swallowed. "Because it should have been yours. Your grandmother wanted that for you. We took that from you, and now we can't undo it. But this is the closest thing to making it right." It wasn't a clean gesture. It wasn't generous. The house was drowning in debt. Still, it was the first time they had openly acknowledged the wrong they'd done. I let out a slow breath. "You want to sign part of a sinking ship into my name." My father flinched, but didn't argue. "We know what it looks like. We know what it is. We also know you're not responsible for saving it." The bank suggested bringing in a third party, someone who might have better credit, more stability. We told them no. "We're not here to ask you to co-sign or pay. We're here to give you a choice." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "You can say no. You probably should say no. But the banker said, if we assign you some future interest in the property, there's a slim chance you could negotiate for value later, once everything's settled, instead of it all disappearing into collections." It was weird, hearing them advocate for my interest instead of Ryan's. "Where is he?" I asked. "Meeting with his lawyer," my father said flatly. "He has his own mess to deal with." I sat back, studying them. This wasn't a manipulation, not this time. They had nothing left to leverage, no power, no threats. No guilt that could reach me now. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked quietly. My mother exhaled shakily. "Because I see your face every night before I fall asleep, not the way you look now. The way you looked sitting on your bed the day we told you the fundraiser money was gone." She pressed a hand over her mouth to steady herself. "I told myself we were choosing the future," she continued. "That Ryan's success would help everyone, that you'd be fine, that the cancer wasn't that serious. I lied to myself. I lied to your grandmother. I lied to you. And now I'm old enough to know there's no apology big enough for that." My father's eyes were wet too, though he tried to hide it. "I was a coward. I didn't stand up for you. I let your mother and your brother convince me we were doing what was best for the family. I knew it wasn't true. I knew. And I did nothing." The banker knocked lightly and stepped in, dropping more documents on the table. "Whenever you're ready," he said, then left again. My mother looked at me. "We can sign everything to the bank and walk away, or we can sign this portion into your name. It might help you years from now. It might not, but it's something. The only thing we have left to give you." I looked at the papers, at their lined, desperate faces, at the ghosts of every choice they had made. It would have been easy to read this as a last-ditch attempt to pull me into their mess. But beneath the chaos, I saw something else. Not redemption exactly, but recognition. An understanding, finally, that I had been wronged. I spoke slowly. "I will not take on your debt. I won't sign anything that makes me responsible for your loans, your foreclosure, your obligations. If there is a way to record a future interest that doesn't tie me to your mistakes, I'll consider it. Not for you. For the version of me Grandma tried to protect." They nodded quickly, almost eagerly. "Of course," my father said. "We'll ask the banker to structure it that way." My mother wiped her eyes. "Emily, I know we have no right to ask for anything, but I'm going to say this once. I am sorry for the fundraiser, for the will, for minimizing your illness. For every time we chose him over you. You deserved better parents." The words landed like a stone in my chest. I had dreamed of hearing something like that for years. In those dreams, their apology healed everything. But real life was messier. Their regret didn't erase chemotherapy delays or sleepless nights or the way I used to wonder if I mattered at all. Still, it mattered that they said it. I nodded. "Thank you for saying that." My mother's voice trembled. "Can we ever fix this?" I met her eyes and answered honestly. "No, not completely. There are things you can't fix. There are only things you learn to live with." She swallowed hard, absorbing the truth. "But," I added, "you can stop making it worse. You can stop asking me to bleed for wounds you created. You can live with the consequences of your choices and let me live with the freedom of mine." Tears spilled down her cheeks. My father stared at the table. The banker returned, ready to walk us through the paperwork. As he spoke, I listened carefully, asked questions, refused anything that tied my name to their debt. In the end, we settled on a legal clause that gave me a contingent interest, something that might, someday, if circumstances aligned, translate into a small payment or asset. Or nothing at all. It didn't matter. What mattered was that for once the equation had shifted in my favor. When it was over, my parents stood slowly. My father extended a hand. "Thank you for coming, Emily." I shook it. His palm was dry and trembling. My mother hesitated, then opened her arms, offering a hug rather than demanding one. I stepped forward and allowed it, but kept it brief. It wasn't a reunion. It was a goodbye to the version of us that had never truly existed. As we walked out of the bank together, the sky outside was overcast but clearing, streaks of sunlight pushing through the clouds. My parents headed toward their car. I turned toward mine. My mother called out softly, "We're proud you made it, even if we didn't help you the way we should have." I paused, then nodded once. "I made it because I had to. That's the person I am." As I drove away, I realized something important. They were no longer the son I orbited around. They were just people. Flawed, selfish, late to their own lessons. And I was finally free to decide what my life would look like without their gravity pulling me off course. There was only one thing left to do now. Figure out who I was when I wasn't the sick daughter, the forgotten child, or the backup plan. I didn't expect the quiet that followed. Not the absence of chaos, but the absence of weight. For the first time in my life, my days weren't shaped by someone else's crisis, someone else's dreams, someone else's entitlement. I woke up when I wanted. I worked because I wanted to. I made dinner in a kitchen where no one hovered, judging or comparing me to the shining sun they'd built their world around. It felt unfamiliar at first, like walking on a healed leg you once believed would never be strong again. A month after the meeting at the bank, I got a letter from the charity hospital program. They wanted an update on my health, along with a reminder for my yearly scan. When I walked into the oncology center, the nurse at the front desk recognized me. She smiled, the kind of warm, unforced smile my family had never learned to give. "What a difference a year makes," she said. I nodded. "More than I ever expected." The scan came back clear. No signs of recurrence. No shadows on the screen. No uncertainty hanging over my head like a storm cloud I couldn't outrun. The doctor congratulated me, shook my hand, and reminded me to keep living my life fully. Living. My life. Words that finally felt like mine. As I drove home, I passed the neighborhood where my grandmother's house once stood proud. It was boarded now, swallowed by debt that wasn't mine. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. I had already said goodbye to it the day I realized love isn't proven by inheritance. It's proven by presence. A week later, Ryan sent a short text. "I'm starting over. I hope someday we can talk again. No pressure. Just, I'm trying." I didn't respond. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because healing sometimes means putting distance between who you were and who hurt you the most. Maybe one day our paths would cross again, when both of us had grown into people who could understand each other. Maybe not. But the choice was mine now, not a burden placed on me by obligation or guilt. My parents didn't contact me again. Not out of anger, but resignation. They finally understood that some bridges don't burn all at once. They crumble slowly, piece by piece, until the space between becomes unbridgeable. They had built that space themselves. One evening, sitting alone on my small balcony overlooking a quiet Portland street, I realized something simple and profound. I survived. Not because of them, not because of forgiveness, not because of luck. I survived because somewhere along the way, I decided my life was worth fighting for, even when the people who should have loved me didn't fight beside me. The cancer didn't break me. The betrayal didn't define me. Their choices didn't end me. They freed me. And in that freedom, I finally found myself.